And have you ever been to an auction, Dustin? An auction for an athlete, especially an athlete that no longer is like doing competitive sports, it gives you that adrenaline rush that you're missing not being on the field. Like you're walking in and there's hundreds of people looking at one item. And if that's an item that you're interested in, then you're competing with everyone there trying to buy it, right? It was the biggest adrenaline rush for me since playing high school football. And so I was immediately hooked. Just like going in there the first Saturday and seeing these cars drive through, people raise their hands, spending thousands of dollars on used cars. I was like, okay, I'm hooked.
Colin, welcome to the show.
What's up, Dustin? How you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's fun to talk to you, and that's makes me. It's especially fun to talk to you because after meeting you a few years ago and getting to know you and who you are and your journey, and you telling me this thing, I was like, you'd be the perfect guest to have on the show. So really excited to have you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I've been watching, kind of your evolution on your podcasting gig. I know it's something you just do on the side, and you were like, hey, I'm going to try this out. And now it's just kind of taken off. So I'm honored and blessed to be here. So thanks for having me.
Oh man, you're too kind. You're too kind. Well, before we jump in, could you just briefly introduce yourself and just a quick snippet of who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Colin Weatherwax. I am born and raised in Dallas, Texas. Really haven't left, honestly. Never really left. And, I think growing up, I was given a lot of opportunities, but I also was told I need to go out and, start making a living at a very young age. And that kind of was instilled to me by my mom. She was like, at 14, she's like, I need you to go work. And I was like, okay. So I actually started my working career at a water park over the summers. I really loved it. Not like your typical lifeguard role, right? I was actually working in the kitchen and loved it my first summer. And by the second summer, I was running the kitchen. So then,
Wait, before you go, slow down. When she said you got to go work, was there something in particular just because you needed to provide for the family, or was it like, hey, no, you just need to have this work ethic?
yeah, no, great question. She wanted me to have the work ethic. So she is a lifelong respiratory therapist. She's been working ever since she was 17 or 18. And so she was like, hey, I know you can go get a job and, you want to buy video games, you want to buy new clothes, you want to go play sports, like you're going to need money to do those things. And I'm making money to kind of run the household, right? So if you want to do that, go get yourself a job.
Okay, I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
So sorry. So you're at the water park, and so
Yeah.
what happened from there?
Yeah, so after my second summer, I was like, you know what? I really like making money. So this was what, freshman, sophomore year. And, the water park was a seasonal gig. And so I transferred to a like part-time gig that was not, just seasonal, it was year round. I started working at an animal hospital. And so I started working in the kennel side. So like Dustin, whenever you would leave town and, your little baby dog or baby cat, gotta have someone watch it, bring it to me. I'll feed it, I'll give it medicine, I'll take it out and, play with it. And that's what I did for basically my whole high school career. And it was a lot of fun. I'm a dog lover and a cat lover. So it was like, dude, I get to play with dogs and cats all day. I'm in.
So during this time, were there any other things that you were in? Were you into sports? Was there any other extracurricular activities that you were into?
Yeah, so beginning of my high school career, I was in football. So really enjoyed football. I couldn't play it in like middle school other than school, like orchestrated football. My mom was like, you're not going to play private. Like, this is not what we're doing. Again, she's like, I'm making money for the household. This isn't for the extracurriculars. So I played football my first couple years. And then towards the end of my career, I just kind of focused on school. My best friend since fourth grade was on the soccer team. And he's like, dude, you should try out. And I was like, okay. So I was backup goalie for my senior year. That was really fun. And I also joined the bowling team.
All
So
right.
A little bit of everything, like, in my high school career, but knew early on that, what I wanted to do, what I was really focused on was working.
Yeah, well, especially from my understanding, football in Dallas is a different thing. Well, football in
But
Texas
it's
is a different
life.
thing. It's life. In high school football, if you're playing, I would imagine, and from what I've seen on TV and the internet, if you're not living and completely into football, like you better focus on school.
Yeah,
That's
no,
all. It's a job.
what you see online and, like, TV shows and stuff like that, like Friday Night Lights, yeah, it's real. Like, you live and bleed football, and if you don't, then you're gonna get passed up.
So you're working, you're making money, and then you're going to school. You're starting to bowl. Did you become good at bowling?
Yeah, my highest score was 278, and I was an average, like, 180, 200 bowler. Still have yet to get that perfect game, but yeah, no, I love bowling.
Yeah. Well, it's fun. I living in San Diego. There's a lot of people from different areas that come out here, and thing that always blows me away is that people, and not nothing against Dallas bowling, but people from the Midwest are unbelievable at bowling. And it's crazy. Like everybody I know from Wisconsin, actually mostly just people from Wisconsin. They're just really good at bowling.
It's too cold outside for anything else.
Yeah, they're good at bowling, drinking, and throwing darts. I mean, other things too, but like those three things, they all have that. And you're like, wow, how are you so good at this? Yeah.
Yeah, no, the bowling for, like, Dallas is for the football rejects.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. That makes sense. That makes sense. So, okay. So moving along in your journey and finding your way, because you like making money, you find that. So what's the next step?
So graduate high school and immediately go to the boss at the kennel and I'm like, hey, I want to work full time. Like this is what I know I want to do. I'm gonna go to community college, right? I'm gonna start on my journey there, but I really enjoy working and bettering myself and learning. So I started working full time there. And I was there for another year after high school graduation. And during that time, they kind of expanded the kennel role. So they opened up a doggy daycare, of which I started to run and eventually became manager of the kennel as well. So had a couple of employees that reported to me and kind of worked hand in hand with the veterinarian techs and the veterinarians, whenever they were shorthanded or anything like that. And so really got to kind of understand a business model and see how it was a family owned veterinarian hospital. So kind of got to see like that tight knit group of people working together for that common goal and just helping people, right? I mean, these are people's loved ones that they're bringing to you and having you care for them. So it really kind of showed me, okay, making a difference in people's lives and making people happy and like being able to come and bring you their dog or their cat and be like, hey, you watch them for a week. Like now that I'm in like a little older, I can be like, you know what? That took a lot of trust from people, right? You don't just take it to anyone and, take your dog or cat and be like, oh, I'm good. Like I can go on vacation for a week.
One of the things that one of the main reasons I was excited to talk to you about this, especially, and we're going to get to the, your Cars for Kids experience and doing that. But to hear what you were saying about your work ethic and how you worked your way into this executive role, I find it really interesting because it definitely wasn't a linear path. But I wanted to learn more about how you had this mindset
Mhm.
of business and doing good and doing well at the same time. And so this makes perfect sense how you're getting these experiences and it's becoming who you are as a person, as a professional, as a human.
Yeah, and you kind of hit the nail on the head, right? Because if you would have asked me whenever I was working at the water park or when I was working at the kennel, what did I want to do when I grew up? I wouldn't have been able to answer the question, nor would I have been able to tell you what I actually ended up doing, right? There was no way in my mind that I ever thought that I would become a CEO of a multi-million dollar nonprofit. That was nowhere on my trajectory, not even close on my like vision board, right? Like I think my dream was to be like a color commentator for sports, right? I still had the love of sports and knew that I could provide in some way. Like I loved fantasy football, all of that stuff, right post high school, still loved that, but as far as a career went, there's no way I could have seen the trajectory for myself.
Yeah. So fill in that gap. So when you were, working and doing those things to when you again, I don't actually don't know how many steps there were, and I don't want you to have to list out everything, but just fill out that gap before you became the executive at Cars for Kids.
Yeah, so we're on the final step now.
Okay.
So from the kennel, we hired a new hire, and at the time I was single, and the new hire that we hired, we kind of hit it off, right? And so we started dating, and probably 6 months into working together, she was like, "Hey, there's this car auction that I think you would really enjoy. Why don't you go check it out? And maybe it could be something for you." And I was like, I really don't like cars. Like I'm not someone that's like, "Oh, I love a classic car. I want a new car." I think at the time I was driving a Chevy S10 with like Corvette wheels and tires. So it looked cool to me, but it's not something that, I was going out of my way to get. And so
So wait,
she was like, "Yeah,
the Chevy S10. Again, I'm not a car guy. I'm not a car guy either. But Chevy S10 is the little pickup truck, right?
yep.
Okay, got it.
No, you're
My dad had one of those. Didn't have Corvette tires on it though.
well, imagine it with Corvette tires and now you know
Okay,
what I was driving around."
okay, got it.
So this conversation led to me kind of going to the auction, right? And have you ever been to an auction, Dustin? An auction for an athlete, especially an athlete that no longer is like doing competitive sports, it gives you that adrenaline rush that you're missing not being on the field. Like you're walking in and there's hundreds of people looking at one item. And if that's an item that you're interested in, then you're competing with everyone there trying to buy it, right? It was the biggest adrenaline rush for me since playing high school football. And so I was immediately hooked. Just like going in there the first Saturday and seeing these cars drive through, people raise their hands, spending thousands of dollars on used cars. I was like, okay, I'm hooked. Like I'm interested now.
Wow. Okay. So I've been to auctions before, like not like charity auctions, but not for cars. And I'd imagine, yeah, that's a different beast.
Yeah, it absolutely was. And so that first day that I went there, I had a connection with the person that was working there, and I was like, "Hey, I heard about the car auction through my girlfriend. Would love to, see if this might be something that I'm interested in working at." And so he put me on with one of the workers at the counter. So after you win your bid, you go inside, you do all the paperwork, you pay out, and then you get your car, right? And so that was my first day on the job, was kind of learning how that went. And I had never dealt with cash before. I had never, done title paperwork for a car, which California's rules are kind of crazy compared to Texas, but still there's a lot of paperwork that's involved, right? And so by the end of the day, my trainer went up to, at the time, the director, and she was like, "You can't let him leave. Like you have to offer him a job." And so from then I was offered a job, put in my 2 weeks notice at the kennel, and started working from the bottom at Cars for Kids, cleaning out the cars that were donated and taking pictures of them whenever they came in.
So one of the things that I want to make sure that we expand on is the fact that you had an interest in this. You didn't know exactly what it was, but you're like, there's something
Uh-huh.
there. And then you asked for an opportunity, or like, can you talk about that? Were you nervous when you did that? Was it something that you were just compelled to do? How was the lead up to asking for that opportunity?
Yeah, it was kind of organic, right? So I showed up and I had an in with the director, right? The director was who my girlfriend at the time knew. And so he was expecting me to come. I walk in the door and I was like, okay, this looks like a used car dealership, right? Like, what am I even doing here? And by the time the auction started, the nerves were gone because I was just infatuated with the entire process. And so from there, I became a sponge. I worked and latched onto my trainer and was like, okay, how do I do what you're doing? And so she showed me a couple of kind of interactions between customers, because it went from the customer comes in, you have to check them in, you have to get a deposit up front, and then you give them paperwork with a bid card because they need that bid card in order to bid. And then from there, they come in and they're like, "You know what? I didn't find anything. I want my refund." We give them the refund, or they buy something and then you start the paperwork for their purchase and give them the keys. So it was very transactional. So I watched a couple of them with my trainer and I was like, "Okay, I got it. Like let me take over." And from there, like I just basically worked the counter for the rest of the day. And at the end of the day, my trainer went up to the director, and I was right there with him. And I probably looked like a kid in the candy store because I was just so high on the entire experience.
Yeah. How old were you at the time?
18.
You were 18 years old when this happened.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. All right. Wow, that's amazing. So one of the reasons why I wanted you to expand on that is especially for our younger listeners and viewers, that don't have it all mapped out and don't know, but that enthusiasm and that willingness to take that can open so many doors for you.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important to show that because especially when you see people and where they are and their position, and you're like, oh, well, you just assume that it happened this way. And sure, you had a
Mhm.
connection to get there, but if you didn't have that enthusiasm and you didn't make that ask, then that door would not open. So I just think that's really an important lesson to share.
Right, and that's one of the things now that I'm older, right? Looking back on it, it took that connection to kinda get me in the door, right? But everything that I did after I walked in that door was on me. Like, it was my responsibility to make a good impression and show them that I was interested in this, and, that's right after I walk in the door, not knowing anything, right? It's not like I'm walking into my dream job where it's a sports commentator, right? I'm walking into a car auction, but just being able to kind of go in with an open mind, right? Don't have any expectations. And that's kind of how I live my life now is going into a conversation or going into a networking event or, my current job now, don't have any expectations. It removes the letdown and it removes a little bit of the anxiety and the fear because you just kind of take everything in stride and you'll be surprised whenever you have that open mindset what good can come from that.
Love it. Love it. So you're starting at the ground floor. You're cleaning cars. You're doing all that stuff. Walk us through. Like, was that hard, or did you still feel that like, hey, I'm on my path now, so I'm just going to enjoy every like what was that feeling like?
I absolutely loved it.
Really, that's
And
amazing.
if you can imagine like dead heat of summer, Dallas, Texas. These cars have been sitting in people's backyards for years, accumulating dirt and trash and animals, you name it, right? These are cars that are donated to you. So they're not like the Bentleys, Mercedes. I mean, we would get those, yes, but most of the time, you're talking about a Ford Pinto with no motor, no driver's seat, no steering wheel, no transmission. These are just junkers, right? And it was my job to clean them and then take pictures of them so we could see, what condition they were in whenever they came in, and then polish it up if we could and get them ready for the auction. So it was intake and then, kind of adding a little bit of glitter on top of it and then getting it ready for the website, right? So it was not glamorous at all, but I was literally physically running around that lot, making sure that everything was accounted for, my job was done, and then once both of those things were done, asking other departments, "Hey, where are you at? What can I do to help? Let me help you so that way we can get more of these cars in and we can do more good."
How many people working at the organization about at this time?
At that time, there was probably about 40 people.
Okay. Okay. And so you're that asking, how can I help? How can you be of value? Can you talk through like how you may have felt like that helped you advance in your career?
It was everything for me, honestly, Dustin. I mean, every day I went in, I had a job to do, but, I was very efficient in my job. So once I was finished with my duties, I would approach the other departments. And this was a national nonprofit, right? So taking in donated cars, selling them in auction in order to give money to beneficiaries that help kids throughout the US, right? And that operation was all done with those 40 people. So call center, title compliance, auction staff, development, marketing, all of those things were a part of those 40 people. And so every day I had the opportunity of going to all of those departments and just sitting down and listening to their process, right? So eventually I, started to become the dispatcher for the tow trucks whenever they were bringing the vehicles in. So at the end of the day, I would tell them, "Hey, you have 20 pickups today." And during the day, if they had a problem, they would call me. And so I would get on the horn with our other representatives or get on the horn with the donors and be like, "Hey, this is what we have going on. Can we reschedule you?" A lot of logistics things. And being able to, see that car come in, clean it and image it was one thing, but being able to kind of see behind the curtain and know the story of that car was truly mesmerizing. Because I mentioned that Ford Pinto with no motor, right? The conversation with that donor was, "Hey, I have a car that was given to me by my dad, and he drove it until he couldn't drive it anymore. And whenever he couldn't drive it anymore, he took the motor out and put it in my current vehicle that I'm driving now." Like, that story just gives me chills right now. So not only did that car have a story, but then the donor has the guts to be like, "You know what? It's sitting in my backyard. It's sitting in my driveway. It's not going to do anything. This is a huge memory for me, but I want it to do some good. So please come pick it up and have it do some good for someone else."
Yeah, that's cool. When you talk about the stories behind the cars and the people and being exposed to that, well, actually, beyond that, before we'll get back to that because I want to touch on that later. But because as far as the mission of Cars for Kids as well, but as you're doing the rotations, let's start there. When you're doing the rotations and you're doing working with dispatch, you're doing this, you're doing that. I know a lot of companies, it's not uncommon for companies to have people do rotations so they get to know, and especially people I know my friend Michael, he talked about in the construction, his company, where they do different circuits, right? They do different things so they get a better understanding of the company. It seems to me that that wasn't really like an organizational plan for you, just something that you took the initiative to do. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Like nobody was telling
100%.
you, I want you to learn all these different things. You just had the curiosity to go around and say, hey, where can I add value? Where can I learn? Where can I grow?
Absolutely. And at the time, it was just, where can I learn? Where can I learn more? Right. Because again, I was 18. So I'm not like, oh, I can add value here, or I can move up here. I can do, it was never in my mindset to be a director level employee for this organization. It was always my mindset to just help out these people that I basically need in order to do my job. Right. Because at the end of the day, I need to clean these cars and take the pictures. But if we're not getting cars in, then there's nothing for me to do. So how can I help them help myself in my current position, right?
What's the next step for you after doing dispatch, doing some of these things? And yeah, what was the next step? Because it wasn't just like, okay, I was doing this and then I became the CEO. like
Right.
what give me some linear steps that took place.
So during that time, I was, kind of learning from compliance, from the mechanic shop, from the call center. And the director at the time approached me and was like, "Hey, we want to open up a new sector for the organization, and it's focused on consignments. So people bringing in their vehicles to sell for a set fee and giving them this kind of bigger audience to sell to, because at the time Facebook Marketplace wasn't as big, right? So people were looking for a means to sell their vehicle, but they didn't have this huge audience that we had. Because if you can imagine, every Saturday we had anywhere from 200 to 500 people on the lot looking to buy a car, not including the people online, which online sales back then weren't as big, right? So we had value to give to people that were wanting to sell their car. And so we opened up this sector. And that sector included selling cars for people like yourself, Dustin. And we also partnered with title loan companies that did repos. So whenever you have a car repoed, that title loan company is trying to get their value back on whatever they loaned out. And at the time, they were currently only using dealer only auctions. And so whenever you sell a car at a dealer only auction, you're selling to other dealers that are looking to make a buck, right? Our auction was open to the public. So it was what I like to call a live Craigslist at the time, right? So we partnered with title loan companies, and we started to see 50 to 150 additional vehicles to our donated vehicles every week. And that's something that I was in charge of kind of from the ground floor. So we didn't have but like two or three a week, toward to where like 2 or 3 years later, we were selling 80 to 150 more vehicles per week than we were 2 or 3 years before that.
Yeah, and you being involved in that initiative from the ground floor and doing that, was there any lesson that you learned in the steps that you took that you were like, oh wow, it's because I did this that I got this result.
Yeah, whenever you asked lesson, I have a horror story that immediately came to my mind,
I'd
and
like to hear those too. I like the horror stories. I like the good story. I like it all.
it was a learning experience for sure. So whenever you're dealing with title companies, obviously the vehicle got repoed, so the person's that's their car, right? But technically it's the title owns car. So we would work with some of their customers, and some of their customers would come and either get their stuff out of their vehicle. Some of the customers would come and pick up their vehicle if they, made right with the title company. There was this one morning I was running late to the office, and I get a call from the office, and they're like, "Hey, there's someone here to pick up their car." And I was like, "Okay, let me call the rep at the title loan office and see if they paid up, if everything's good, if they've squared away." And he's like, "No, they haven't. Like, they can't pick up the car." And so I call the office, and they tell him, "Hey, you can't pick up the car." Full day goes by, 4 o'clock comes around, and that same customer comes and he's like, "Hey, I paid, everything's good. I'm here to pick up my car." And I was like, "Okay, cool." I go in the back, I start the car, I bring it up to him, give him his stuff, give him the car, give him the keys, and he's gone. I call the rep and I was like, "Hey, just want to let you know the guy that we talked about earlier this morning, he came and picked up his car." And he's like, "He did what?" I was like, "He came and picked up his car. Like, he said he was good." "No, he never showed up to pay." And I was like, "Oh no, what have I done?" So I go to the director and I was like, "Hey, this is what happened." Obviously, we make it right. We end up getting the car back, but it was a huge learning experience for me to be like, "Okay, I guess you can't take people's word anymore. Like, you have to check all the boxes, right?" And I think at the time I was probably 22, 23, but those life lessons, like, it stuck with me, right? I'm here talking to you about it 10 years later, and I made a lot of the mistakes in my younger career, right? Whenever I was 18, I mean, think back at your first career, right? Make a lot of mistakes, but the one thing I didn't do was make that mistake twice. That never happened again on my
or
watch.
or make excuses, you know?
Yeah.
Take accountability. Listen, I messed up. This is what I did. Not gonna happen again. That's huge. That's
Yeah,
huge.
first thing I did was go to the director and say, "Hey, this is what happened," and we made it right, right? We didn't know what making it right looked like, and then we knew, like, we figured it out, but yeah, no, I mean, it stuff happens in business, in life. Like, I took all the data that had happened throughout the day, and I was like, "Okay, this makes sense to me," right? I think I have my checks and balances done, and by the end of the day, I hadn't, and made it right.
Yeah. Okay. That's sign of a good team too. If you could, and there may have been some expletives expressed
Oh,
in
yeah.
there, like "What the fuck?" You do? But like, hey, we're on the same team. Well, let's figure it out. Let's figure it out
Let's
together. We'll
figure it.
take care of it. It's not a big deal. It's not life or death. Okay. Yeah, that's crazy.
So sorry for that dirt road, but no, whenever you said lesson, I was like, okay, that lesson is burned in here. I got to get it out.
Yeah, well, no, and that's important. I think that's a big part of what this show is, and being able to share these lessons. Because if you just go through like, yeah, this worked, this worked, this worked, it's like, okay, so just do everything right in your career, and that's it. Like, okay, easy enough. Like having people here, like, no, no, there was ups and downs and rock bottoms and highs of highs. I think that's really important.
Yeah. So if I can go back to your original question about like lessons of kind of bringing that up from the ground up, right? So my mentality was never to go from zero consignments to 150 a week, right? But I had made relationships throughout the process with other dealers, with other title loan companies. And my biggest thing was like, hey, this is working really well for you, right? Like, this is way better than going to a dealer auction and making 30% of what you loaned out. You're making 80, 90, 100% back on the loan, the money that you loaned out. What other branches could benefit from this, right? And so with that mindset, I kind of grew the business just by going out and saying, "Hey, here's my model. Here's what your current model is. You need to come over here," right? And I just used the data that I had and used kind of the goodwill that I had made with the context that I had and was able to expand it. It was all organic. It was all me going out and being like, "Hey, I'm not going to tell you I know how your business is running, but hey, there's one down the street that is doing it like this. Is this how you're doing it?" Yes. Well, we were able to change their model from 30%, 40% return to 80, 90, sometimes 100% return. Would that be interesting for you?
That's amazing. That's sales right there, baby. That's it.
It was.
um,
Yes.
So as you're moving up in your career and you're doing these things and you're expanding the business, and so now at this point, are you in a leadership role, or do you have people reporting to you at this point?
Yeah, so at this point, I'm consignment manager. Still 24 years old, right? And obviously, have the eye of the director. It's a company of 40, so it's not like, I don't get to see him. That being said, I'm kind of in my own niche in the consignment area. And he approached me one day and he was like, I want you to start working with the directors at the time, or the assistant directors. At the time, we had two, and then we had him at the top, and he wanted me to shadow both of them for a 6-month period. So one of them worked over the inside staff, so call center compliance, marketing, stuff like that. And then the other half worked over the outside staff, so mechanics, people cleaning out cars, the consignment portion, and yeah, I think in detail. And so for a year span, I worked with each assistant director, just kind of learning what their responsibilities were. And at the time, it was like, hey, this weird thing happened. What do I do to fix it? Right. So I'm seeing, I'm learning, I'm a huge sponge in this, and I'm just watching the fixes throughout the day. And I think not only in nonprofits, I mean in for-profit companies, this is something that happens behind the scenes every day, right? There's staff that go to their managers and like, hey, I have this weird thing that popped up, and the manager's like, well, it is weird to you, but we've done it and this is what we've done in the past. So it was just me learning their thinking behind, okay, when a problem happens, what do we do to fix it, or how can I fix it?
Okay. Was there was there anything that you found in your personality, and you've referenced a couple of these things like being a sponge, being adding value, that led to or translated into your leadership role and your leadership style?
I think so. The main thing was that I loved helping people. And it was never, whenever I talked about earlier, like going and helping people out and trying to learn what they're doing, it was not like, okay, I sit and listen to one call and I'm like, okay, why did you do that? Like, you should be doing X, Y, and Z, right? It was, why did you do that? They tell me. And then I'm like, okay, cool. Like, now I understand it. And I was, and still am, a huge people person. So, you have to remember, this is a company size of 40. I started when I was 18. By the end of my career, I was CEO over some of the people that had managed me during my career there. So that level of humility and personability with the staff, and just being able to be approachable by literally anyone, whether I was cleaning out the cars or whether I was CEO. It's what my leadership style was and is. It's being a people person and having a genuine heart to help people, and not looking to do anything that negative.
Yeah. Was there any animosity or any resentment for I don't know. You put the word on it. So anybody who, used to be your manager and then you're managing them, was there any weird feelings there?
I don't think so. Whenever I became the kind of shadower of the assistant directors, there was a little animosity there, because in their mind, the pinnacle of the company is director and their assistant director. There's already two of them. So if something were to happen to that director, one of them would, organically move up, right? And so now here I come, 25-year-old kid, learning everything that they're doing. Are they going to get hopped over, right? And that's never my mindset, right? I'm not like, okay, I need to learn everything that you're doing so I can be your boss, right? It was, I need to learn everything you're doing so that I can make this company better. So everything underneath that, all of the people that manage me underneath them, it was always, super friendly. Like, to this day, there's a 60-year-old call center manager that her and I are still friends, right? And so, no, I mean, obviously, it's cutthroat whenever you get towards the top, right? But it wasn't cutthroat on my side.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That's a cool part of your personality and how that all works. I want to talk about some of those growing pains, because I know it is a different story when you become in the leadership role and do things like, was there anything extraordinary that you had to learn stepping into these leadership roles, that you were like, okay, yeah, I could do it this way here, and yeah, my personality is what it is, but I need to learn this skill or this talent, um, or this technique. This is the name of the show. But like these tools, talents, and tech. Like, is there anything that you were like, in order to do this, I have to do things differently?
Yeah, so the director really pushed for me to go back and get my college education because, as you may remember, I was going for my associate's degree when I was at the kennel. I stopped that and I was like, you know what? I'm going to focus on working full time. And so as I started my transition into Cars for Kids, I, was just focused on working and I was not, focused on going back to school. And the director pulled me aside basically from day one and was like, if you want this to be your long-term career, if you want anything for your life, you need to go back to school. And like any 18-year-old kid, I listened to the 50-year-old that was talking to me and I was like, whatever, dude, like I know what I'm doing. So it wasn't for about 5 years that I realized, okay, maybe I do need to do this, right? And so I ended up going back for my associates and then eventually for my bachelor's. And then 1 month after I became CEO, I got my master's in management. And so the education piece was something that I knew I needed, but it wasn't something that I really wanted to do. And throughout the company, right, I knew how every department worked, right? But I needed to know why we needed those companies to work the way that they did. And that was another kind of challenge for me, right? So the financial piece, learning and knowing the ins and outs of the P&L statement, the 90, which is basically a nonprofit's, Bible, right? And making sure that we were doing things that at the end of the day, our mission and vision, everything we did from buying a piece of, paper towels for the office, it had to go towards that end goal of our mission and vision, right? If it didn't make sense to do it, then we wouldn't do it.
And do you feel like going to school at that time and having some of that working context? Let me put it like this. Sometimes knowing what I know now, even when I went back to get, my AI certificate, it going to those classes and doing that work seemed completely different than back when I was in college. When I was in college, I was
Mhm.
like, now I'm like, oh, this clicks. It makes sense because I have context. Did you feel that this stuff was new to you when you went to get your master's, or was it this is giving me a more of a solid foundation and framework for what I've been experiencing, or was it like this is new and I need this?
No, definitely the latter where this was expanding on everything that I had learned up to that point. So if I would have gone the traditional route and graduated high school and went straight to college and got my master's in management, 4 or 5 years later, I would have flunked out or became disinterested and not gone down that road, right? But seeing as I was living and working that master of management and bachelor's of business, I was able to relate to the coursework, right? Like I could say, oh, I lived that, like I know exactly what this professor is trying to teach because I've done it. I've been in that situation, either learning from it or I myself being the one teaching the employees, right? So it gave me a better appreciation of the coursework and of getting my education. Without it, there's no way I would have that today.
Yeah, that's great, man. And congrats for doing that, for going back and taking that leap. That's really cool.
Thank you.
Um, talk about the next step, because
Mhm,
how did that move when you became director? Like,
mhm.
was it director and then you became the CEO? Like, what was that step?
So it was a restructuring of the organization. So it was like executive director and director, and then we restructured it to more of a for-profit company. So we became COOs and CEOs. So I became COO, let's see, 2 years before I became CEO. So we're talking 2020 now. So I became COO, knew just about everything there was to do with the business, like flying high. We're doing great. Nothing's going to stop us. And then boom, COVID, right?
Mm.
So remember, this is a public auction where we're open every Saturday, 250 to 500 people in our facility on overnight. Coincidentally, on my birthday in March 14th is when the shutdown happened. And for a whole month, we had no idea what we were going to do. And just like everybody else, I mean, this is the story as old as 5 years ago. I won't say as old as time, but as old as 5 years ago, right? And we sit down at the table and we're like, we have to have an auction. We can't not sell these cars. We're still getting cars in, right? All of our employees are at home, but the managers are still trying to figure it out. And at the time, we had a small online presence. right? We had, 70, 80 people participating every week. But we decided, hey, we're going to have an auction. We're going to sell our absolute worst cars, like the worst of the worst, strictly online, online only. After a month off, we did it, 50 cars, and our ROI was better for than when we had it in person. And we were like, wait a second, these are the worst cars that we had. We didn't have to hire an auctioneer and his team, have 30 people on the lot making sure people aren't going and stealing cars, parts, security, you name it, right? Driving these cars through a crowd of people. Just picture that in your mind. 500 people, you're trying to just do your job and there's people getting under them, like seeing how everything sounds, right? So we have that auction. Eyes, deer in the headlights. We're like, oh my gosh, we can do this. Next week, full on auction, 175, 200 cars, best of the best, worst of the worst, a little bit of everything. And our numbers are 60% better than pre COVID numbers. Huge. I mean, most businesses failed, tanked, like nonprofits gone overnight, right? We changed the model of the business, right? We're still selling these cars, but now we're doing it strictly online. Like people can come look at them at their leisure the Friday before the sale, but Saturday, lots closed. If you want to buy a car, you're online and online only. Now after they win the bid, they come in, they do the paperwork, same thing like that, but it was a huge breakthrough for us. And obviously we had some furloughed employees, right? We had to do some layoffs and we went through that first round after COVID hit. And then we did another round because we're like, we have a new model and we don't need 30 people here on a Saturday. So we went from a staff of 40 down to a staff of 20.
It's amazing sometimes when chaos or, tragedy can, necessity is the mother of invention, right? I think that's the
Hmm.
phrase, something like that. But it's like
I love
really,
it.
you're like, what am I gonna, what are we gonna do? Like, well, we got to do something, and you came up with something as a team, and it worked, and you're like, okay, so how? So then you double down on it. So let's try this again. Let's see. Well, we need to do, I guess. Were there any other things that you needed to pivot? You mentioned having to restructure, some of the employees and with the furlough. And were there any other things that you needed to like? Okay, well, if we're gonna do this online, we need a better website, or we need a better this. Were there things like that in the cards?
Absolutely, 100%. So again, we only had like a 70, 80 person presence online prior to COVID. Now we're talking about 300, 400, 500 people online. And we were at the time using a third party to run our online platform. And so immediately the director and I got together and I was the techier one of I guess the CEO at that time. So I was the techier one of me, him, and then the other COO that we had. And so I was like, hey, like I can do this, right? I'll work with our development team. We'll make something that you approve of and it'll be perfect for us. So at the end of probably 3 or 4 months of work, we were able to roll out a new website, a new online bidding platform that we controlled and were in charge of. And a lot of the design and the implementation of, okay, what does the user want, right? What do we need as a management team? All of that collaboration between myself, the development team, and then, the CEO, that was all culminated in 4 months and we were rolling it out after Christmas. And
Hmm.
so it was like, okay, like we can do this, right? Now we've kind of perfected this new model. Now it looks pretty and we can kind of take this and run with it.
No, that's amazing. We talked a lot about so far in this conversation about like the business aspect in your journey, but also I think it's the mission of Cars for Kids and what you were doing, what the organization was doing to support things that you care about.
Mhm.
And can you just talk a little bit about that and your mindset and how this all fits together and mission driven work?
Yeah, and I'll close the loop on kind of the ladder of succession, right? So
Okay, sure.
COO for 2 years, and then the CEO became sick, and he had put a succession plan in place and presented it to the board. We thought he had more time, but it was all in God's time, and he passed away untimely in April of 2022, and that was on a Monday. By Friday, I was voted interim CEO and then July had my contract for CEO. So dealing with the death of basically my mentor, right? He's the one that offered me the job after my first day going to an auction, right? And now he's gone, right? So a lot kind of fell on my shoulders, but my whole career, I knew that I was working for something that was bigger than a paycheck, right? I was blessed to be able to kind of see the back behind the curtain, right? These cars that are coming in, selling them, cleaning them up, whatever. But I could see the good that we were doing in the community as well. And what that was helping high school dropouts get a second chance at their high school diploma locally here in Dallas. And so we partnered with a beneficiary named Texans Can Academies. It's a campus of 13 schools, and they focused on kids that dropped out of high school for whatever reason, right? It could be bad grades, it could be not showing up, it could be, their parents passed away and they have to provide for their family now, their brothers, their sisters, what have you. And now they have the wherewithal to say, you know what? I need this. This is something that's not a want, it's a need. And so they make the commitment to go back to school, and the cars that we're selling in the auction is going to help them get that high school diploma, something that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise, right? And so seeing that throughout my career of cleaning out cars all the way up to CEO, I got to go to high school graduations. I got to be a part of these kids' lives and say, "Hey, I'm proud of you. Hey, great job." Right? And, now get to see, where they are in their life and be like, "Wow, that's all because someone donated a car," right? It's crazy to wrap your mind around. And being able to be a part of that, as you know, Dustin, I mean, your work with San Diego Center for Children, you get to see that difference day in and day out. It's different when you get to see it, right? You can say like, "Hey, I love this nonprofit. I love what they do." But until you get to go volunteer at one of their events or go to one of their galas or go to an opening of, a school or a campus, whatever it may be, until you get to interact with the people that work there and the people that lives are being changed, you don't understand. And that was probably that's probably had the biggest impact on me
Yeah.
is seeing the fruits of our labor.
Yeah. On that note, I'll share the first time that it hit me. I think, well, hit me in this type of way. How much volunteering matters, especially working with youth. And I was volunteering. There's an organization called Volunteer San Diego, and this when I was in my early 20s, and my career wasn't doing very well, and I did was kind of rudderless. I didn't know. And my mother would always tell me, like, whenever you're trying to, and my father, my family would tell me, anytime that you're not feeling your best, help somebody else. That's the best thing you can do. Just do something good for somebody else. And when I looked at Volunteer San Diego, there was one thing that was like play basketball at this center for foster youth, and I was like, volunteer by playing basketball. I was like, yeah, yeah, all right, count me in. And then I went there and I played, and there were some other volunteers there, and we were playing, and I didn't know much about foster youth or the system, but going there and playing and seeing how happy all the kids were to play, and we were having such a fun time. And then I learned about like what the kids were doing there, and the purpose and the reason why the center was there, and it broke my heart. But also it was like, wow, you can make such a difference in people's lives just by being there. I mean,
Mhm.
let alone all the people that actually work at the center and are involved with the therapy and all those things. Like, I mean, God bless them, because the world needs more people like that. But I started to see, like, it doesn't take much to make a huge difference in people's lives. And after that, it was like, what else can I do? How else can I help? And it wasn't just like because it made me feel good, because it did.
Mhm.
It made me feel very fulfilled to be able to help people. But just to see how happy they were, and then hearing the stories of why they were there, it's like, oh wow, I can't believe that that's what's going on behind the scenes in this world. So it's tragic, tragic stuff.
No. But I love that story, right? Because it's the same for me, right? Showing up at these graduations, sometimes the kids that are graduating don't have anyone there to cheer them on. Now I'm part of a crowd that's cheering them on. And then after the ceremony, I'm like, "Hey, You're going to do something with your life, not because you have this, but because you took the time and got it for yourself, right? And that's what it takes, right? Sometimes these kids, at least in the kids that I've worked with, we say it's a second chance, right? But sometimes it's their first chance. Sometimes people they're dealt a bad hand in life, and people just don't believe in them for whatever reason. And whenever you walk into the doors of a facility where people just immediately believe in you, I mean, it's life changing, right? You're talking about playing basketball with kids that have nothing, and they're laughing it up, cheering, and probably the highlight of their week, right? And you're like, I'm just going to play basketball. But whenever you sit back and you're like, hold on, what was I just a part of? It's huge.
Yeah. And just as a little side note, I didn't take it easy on him either.
I'm not surprised
No,
by
one of
that.
one of the actually one of the staff that was playing with us also, he was pretty good. So we were having some battles. It was a lot of fun, but everyone had a great time, and it's a fun thing to be a part of.
Yeah, I'm not surprised you didn't take it easy on him because you didn't take it easy on me on the golf course. So
Oh God, yeah, get out of here. So hey, listen, I want to be mindful of time, and I know you recently had a transition in the career. So do you want to talk about that, what you're doing, or do you want to save that for the second episode? It's up to you. We got a few minutes left here.
hey, I'm always open for a second episode. I'll put a bow on kind of the history, but we
Sure.
can talk about anything for an hour. You and I really appreciate the time. Uh, CEO for Cars for Kids for a couple years. I had a vision for the company that the board and I didn't really see eye to eye on, and so I decided to step out and do something different. And what that was for 6 months, I honestly didn't know. Right. I was blessed to be able to kind of grow my family. My wife and I just welcomed a baby girl in May. And so that was kind of step one, right? Step two was finding my new career. And if you don't know by now, I like helping people. And that's what I do now in my new career. I am an agent with New York Life, helping people plan for their financial futures for themselves and their families. And it has more of that giving back effect, more of a intimate way, right? Obviously, at Cars for Kids, I'm writing checks to beneficiaries and they're doing all this good in the community. But there was something missing inside me to be able to be the one that's actually face to face with those people and making a difference in their lives. And with my new career, I'm able to do that.
Mm.
And it's huge. The first clients that I've had were both teachers in a small city south of Dallas here, and they have an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old son, and they didn't have anything in place for if something were to happen. And I went through the whole process. It was my first time. And at the end of it, I basically broke down to them. I was like, you do not know how much this means to me that not only you guys are clients, but y'all were my first clients and y'all were my first experience in this new field. I am so happy to have been a very small piece in protecting you and your family should something happen. And it was really moving and I'm enjoying the heck out of it so far.
Cheering for you, and I believe in you, and you're going to do great things. You're going to continue to do great things, man.
I appreciate that. And I'm looking at your tools, talents, and techniques, every single day. One to learn a little bit more. That's where I'm at. I'm still a sponge. I might be a little older, but still a sponge.
Hey, nothing wrong with that, man. So that's the thing. Like everything that you said about the steps in your journey that you did to have success at Cars for Kids are the same steps that anybody should have to take for any type of success. It's the same
Absolutely.
recipe. It's the same recipe. And so,
Yeah.
Colin, thank you very much. It's always great to spend time with you.
No, thank you, Dustin. I really appreciate it.